It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host, Trey Bossa, and today we're discussing a plan that ended up with a shocking death. And that's exactly why we've gathered a team of professionals for this episode. Today, our panel includes Larry Kloefkorn, founding partner of Market Advisory Group, Joshua Sikora, CPA tax advisor from Market Tax Services, Alex Robinson, estate planning attorney from Eidelman Law Firm, and Mark Benefiel, healthcare advisor from Market Medicare Advisors. Welcome in, everyone. Now, Larry, you've got a very interesting client for us to start off with.
Yes.
Why don't you share?
So Faith has been a client for probably 15 years, and she is now aged 94, and about 4 years ago, she started suffering from dementia, and it's progressing, and people who know others who have had dementia, you know that it progresses at different speeds for different people. And so originally we had put together a trust for them, and then there's some changes made and then some adjustments made. And I'm gonna, let our estate planner tell us more about that. But to give you more of the setup of the story, they had only one daughter, or I should say one child, and it was a daughter. And I'm going to refer to these people as grandmother, that was the 94-year-old client, daughter, the one who was taking care of grandmother, and then granddaughter, it plays a role in this as well. And so grandmother had gotten to the place where daughter was spending all of her time pretty much 24/7 with her mother, which is grandmother. So that's how, that's the point she had gotten to in her dementia. She could speak, towards about anything earlier in the day, but the sundowners thing is for real. And as the day went on, it was more difficult for her. So her daughter was the successor trustee, and she took over about 1 year ago helping out, and I worked with her very closely. Granddaughter was the second successor trustee, if I'm saying that right. I'll be corrected if I'm not, but she was the next person if needed. And these people then in around $750,000, and then they had a duplex they lived in one side and rented the other side. And then there was this big turn of events just a few days ago. Daughter died. Grandmother goes in and realizes that daughter, who was there to take care of her, had died during the night. And you can imagine the impact that made and how things began to suddenly change. And, granddaughter then was the next person that would step up and help out in this case. She works 2 jobs though. So she wasn't going to be able to just, step in and do what her mother had been doing as the daughter. And so here's this granddaughter. She is mourning the loss of her mother and having to take on responsibility, responsibility for her grandmother. And that was an unexpected change in status.
So let's turn to Alex Robinson from Ottoman Law Firm. This has to be an unbelievably tough situation for people to deal with. And coming from the outside, people come to you for a plan. But, some things like this, they just happen, and Faith's heirs, they die before her. So how did that conversation go?
Yeah, so this is every parent's worst nightmare, is losing one of their children before they go. No one wants to deal with that, and they don't want to think about that. But one of the benefits of having an estate plan is that you can really have that plan in place for all the circumstances in life that you don't want to think about, and that you don't want to plan for on your own. That's where we come in, and we set up a trust for the grandmother that takes care of all of these things almost automatically. So, it's a terrible loss for her that her daughter died, but her granddaughter is set up to be the successor trustee of her trust. The granddaughter is set up to be her successor agent for her financial and her healthcare powers of attorney. So even though she has dementia, there's someone in place that can take care of her and can make decisions for her. And to Larry's point, where she's working 2 jobs and she's trying to balance all of these life issues, one of the great parts of having a power of attorney is that agent can delegate those authorities to other people. So she can hire in-home nursing care. She can place her in a nursing home if that's what's really needed, and they've had that conversation and that's what the agent thinks that needs to be done. She can, come back to us and talk through the trust and figure out if we need to make amendments. But that's kind of the nice thing of having a trust, is that it sets all these things up and they happen automatically. Now, I don't expect the granddaughter, or for anyone who has a trust or is part of an estate plan, to remember everything. And so that's why we chat with people for free after something like this has happened, to give them the advice that they need to help them understand the plan. Because when you've gone through this trauma of losing your mom or losing anyone that you love, you're not going to remember what are in those documents. You're not going to remember what the plan is. But the benefit of having a plan is that there's a plan in place. You know that there's someone that you can talk to about it, and you know that you're going to get that advice for free. So doing that really helps out and makes the situation much easier to deal with. She's still dealing with that trauma, but she doesn't have to deal with the additional logistical burdens of not knowing what's happening next.
Though this is a very unique story, Faith isn't alone. A lot of people go through very complex scenarios. That's why it can help to have a team around you to figure out the best way forward. All it takes to find out if this is the team for you is a 15-minute phone call. To set up that introductory phone call, just reach out at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. That's our new online resource we set up to educate people just like you about all things retirement. When we come back, we'll be continuing Faith's story with her healthcare. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Last segment, we were talking about grandmother Faith. She's in her 90s and dealing with dementia. Her daughter had moved in with Faith to help her, so she didn't have to go to a nursing home. But then her daughter suddenly passed. Larry, what was the next step for grandmother Faith?
Well, one of the things that needed to happen when you were going from one trustee to the next one in line is the new one needed to be brought up to speed. And one of those items is, what kind of health care is she going to be dealing with? So that's where market Medicare advisors and health advisors come in.
Awesome. Mark, this is where you step in, having a greater conversation.
Well, as these transitions are being made, it definitely makes sense to understand what type of health care that grandmother has elected. Whether I assume that she's probably on Medicare at this point with her age, mm-hmm. and no one's working, so we're working through that. So whether she has a Medicare supplement or whether she has an Advantage plan. Does it make sense if she had a supplement to stay on that? There could be some advantages if she ends up in a skilled nursing facility. It may make sense to have some additional coverages that may be available through some special hospitalization plans through on the Advantage side. Also understanding that what it pays for and what it doesn't pay for. If Grandma ends up in a facility of some type, does it Medicare is not going to pay for that long-term care facility. It's not going to pay for the memory care. It's not going to pay for the dementia care. So are those types of things in order? Are there funds available to help pay for that? It brings up a lot of questions, and those are all things that, as you're working through those trust, questions as well earlier on, does it make sense to when you're having those power of attorneys and you're executor of that trust and maybe the matriarch of the family is in an advanced stage as she is, to get ourselves up to speed sooner than later, make sure that we have the necessary medical power of attorneys, HIPAA releases, all those things are taken care of, and really understand what levels of care are available to the grandparent and what the options are. Can we keep her in the home? Can we go through a post-PACE program and have Medicare pay for a caregiver to come in the home as opposed to going into it? So there's lots of options that are available, but it really starts with a clear understanding of what they are, because they're very varied. But a key point is to really understand is if a decision is made that she has to go into a higher level of care, of what Medicare will pay for and what won't pay for and what the trust may be responsible to pay for.
Larry, we've talked about the estate plan. We've talked about the healthcare side of things, but is there any tax components that come into play?
There is, and so a big portion of what we set up for Faye, because of her particular situation, Faith has a lot of cash value life insurance. And for instance, if a person might put $350,000 in that sort of thing, and a few years later it's worth $450,000. But it was made as a cash value insurance policy just in case she needed that for care. Well, she has the ability to cash it in, and that's treated differently, I think Josh is going to tell us, from a death benefit.
Yeah, so when we talk to people about life insurance, we always talk about it being a tax-free benefit, but that is specifically talking about the death benefit of the policy. When they go and cash out the policy like you're talking about, there could be a taxable event in play. If someone put in, like you were saying, $350,000 into this insurance policy, but now years down the road when they need to get the cash for Faith's care, and now the policy's grown to $450,000, I think you said. Well, when we say growth, the government looks as that as being a taxable event. And so that growth of $100,000 is taxable. And unfortunately, it's going to be taxed right along with her other regular sources of income, like her Social Security, retirement account withdrawals, which means this is probably going to be a little bit on the expensive side in terms of taxes. And so that's going to then reduce, unfortunately, how much is going to be available to create that cash pool to provide that care that she's looking for.
In effect, it diminishes how much is available for her care. But on the other hand, the beautiful thing about it is it was going to pay out one way or the other. And that's more important to people than a lot of things.
So now the granddaughter has essentially assumed all of these different responsibilities. We got possibly a lot of different powers of attorney, financial. We got to take a look at those healthcare options, and then even the tax consequences of some of these policies that she's paid into. Medicare and taxes are confusing enough when you don't have dementia. Not only is it complex, but it's always changing. That's why it helps to have advisors in place that you're meeting with yearly to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call to get answers to your questions. Just reach out at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in a future episode. When we come back, we'll pivot to a more recent story, a unique circumstance for a meeting. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Eye on Retirement. Now, Larry, you had a meeting just last night.
Yes.
That you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, this was a client meeting. So we were going over their plan that we, that I put together for them. And, we're right on course. Everything's going the way it needs to be. And I come to really having covered everything that needed to be covered. And I said, so what's on your agenda tonight? And he surprises me, and he has some new news. This is a 76-year-old man that is still working full-time because he has special skills, and they didn't want him to go, and he wanted to continue to earn. Mm-hmm. So, he was still working. Now, his wife finally talked him into cutting back next year. So he will only, starting, I think he said in February, he will only be working, I think, 3 days a week. And he said that he was talking to an attorney friend of his that he happens to go to church with. And this friend said that, you may need an LLC. I can help you with that. And then he started venturing into some other areas that I'll get to here in a moment. But I looked at him and I said, you do realize you have that provided here? And he stopped for a moment, and you could see the light bulb come on. And I said, our estate planning team who built your trust for you, they also can guide you and give you expertise on setting up LLCs and what is the right kind and so forth. And I said, here's the thing. I remember you telling me just a moment ago, I didn't say this at first here today, but I said, this attorney friend told you, make sure you get some good tax advice. I said, do you realize you can do all of that right under our own roof? That's why we call it TEAM, the acronym taxes, estate planning, assets under management, and Medicare, okay, of which he's involved in all. So that right there, we had storms, okay? Mm-hmm. So many of our people were working remotely. I was able to get first our tax representative on the phone or on Teams. So there he was on our big screen. And as he was talking, I realized we need to bring in the attorney as well. So we message Alex, and sure enough, he's available, and he comes on, and we've got all of them patched in together. Everyone's there as though just like they were if they would have been still in the building. And so the first part was to have Joshua talk to them about, what tax advice was your attorney speaking of?
Yeah, so we started kind of talking about he brought in the LLC to begin with. And I said, well, that's really legal advice, and that's when you decided to bring Alex in on the conversation. But I said, outside of that, even if you choose LLC or not, that doesn't dictate our tax situation. And so we started describing what his taxes would look like if he didn't do anything special on the tax side, and how self-employments were going to come in, regular income taxes, totaled it up. It was like 43% of his income was going to go to taxes that he was earning out of his job. His wife was pretty shocked by that. So then we started talking about other entities that might make sense from a tax perspective, like an S corporation, and how it is designed to help protect you for some of those self-employment taxes. But given that this was a 1-year opportunity and there was going to be, setup costs, he has to take payroll out of it, so there was going to be costs to run that, costs to shut it down. It may be less effective than it would be if this was a multi-year thing. But we kind of were able to talk through that and start to explore it and give him options that we can explore more fully as he goes down this path. But then we brought Alex back in to talk about the original question about the LLC.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really just a question of giving people the information that they need in that moment. And that's what the benefit of this team is that I was able to come on and chat with him, ask him some questions about what his goals are and what he's looking to do, and then set up a second appointment so we can really get down into the nitty-gritty of what that LLC is going to do for him, what he needs to do to make sure that his assets are protected, and giving him the advice that he needs to be able to make the decision that makes the most sense for him.
And I think, what this demonstrates is how versatile and spontaneous we can be because we have all the people. Fortunately, we have the technology as well.
Thank goodness. These are the issues people deal with every day in this country. Some things can be avoided with careful planning. Others can only be dealt with after the fact. That's why it helps to have a whole team working together on your behalf. And do you have that team? To set up a 15-minute introductory phone call just to see if we're the right team for you. Reach out at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There, you can also watch past episodes, research your retirement questions, or set up that 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors. That's all the time we have this week. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Trey Bossa, along with the entire panel, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell, or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-Medicare to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.